For 4 years, the historic planet-hunting mission Kepler stared at a group of 150,000 stars located in a region extending 3,000 light-years away from Earth. The data collected by the spacecraft has brought a turning point to the long search for other planets like Earth. Is ours one of countless life-bearing worlds strewn about the galaxy? Or is it a rare Garden of Eden in a barren universe? What are we learning about our place in the cosmos? From the search for Earth-like planets. Tens of thousands of years ago, humans began to fan out across the planet, following unknown pathways, crossing unmeasured distances. We traced coastlines and sailed uncertain seas. We crossed ocean straits drained by an ice age. Into every corner of Earth we ventured, looking for places to put down our roots, to raise our families, or just to see what was there. Today, it's the final frontier that fires our imaginations. With so many stars in our galaxy, we make a simple extrapolation that the cosmos must be filled with worlds like ours, with life, even intelligent life. This so-called many worlds view goes back to ancient times, to China, India, Greece, and Egypt. The Quran, the Talmud, and many Hindu texts all imagined a universe full of living beings. It wasn't until the 16th century that the idea became grounded in concrete notions of the physical universe. Astronomer and mathematician Nicholas Copernicus declared that Earth revolves around the Sun. That opened the way for the Italian friar Giordano Bruno, a natural philosopher who believed that the universe is eternal and without end. He held that there is a multitude of worlds with diverse life forms, including intelligent beings. Bruno's outspoken challenges to church doctrine got him executed in the year 1600. His ideas gained support when Galileo Galilei used his telescope to show that our sun is just one among countless other stars. By the modern era, the many worlds view held sway in scientific circles. New telescope technologies gave us a view of vast star populations within our galaxy. As the astronomer and author Carl Sagan noted, given the sheer number and diversity of stars in our galaxy, it's far more likely that the universe is brimming over with life. In 1961, the astronomer Frank Drake sought to lay out the odds of finding advanced alien civilizations. The Drake equation took into account the rate of star formation in our galaxy, the fraction of stars with planets, of planets that might support life, that might develop intelligent life, or radio communications, which we could perhaps detect. Even as astronomers began to scour the heavens for alien signals, another view of the galaxy gained momentum. It started with the philosophers Aristotle and Ptolemy. They believed that humanity and Earth are unique. With the spread of Christianity, this Ptolemaic system became embodied in the rare Earth hypothesis. In religious doctrine, it was taken to mean that mankind and Earth were specially created by God in His image. In science, it implied that the circumstances that allowed life to unfold on Earth are so particular and fortuitous that the odds are slim we'll find another place like it. Where does the debate stand today, with information about Earth and the cosmos pouring in from ever more advanced technologies? On the many-world side, modern theories hold that planet formation is a common byproduct of star formation. And as we've seen on this planet, life is persistent, adaptable, relentless. Millions of species grace the landscapes and oceans of our planet. From simple one-celled plants to complex megafauna. In terms of mass and sheer numbers, none of it holds a candle to a simple hardy form. Bacteria have been documented in fossils dating back some 3.5 billion years. Bacteria are found in habitats ranging from hot springs and volcanoes, the digestive systems of animals, the soil, or the sulfurous environments of deep-sea hydrothermal vents. They are part of a much larger global ecosystem that suffuses the Earth's crust. Down where heat and chemicals from Earth's interior fuel their growth. Not even the worst climate catastrophes of the past could dislodge this biological storehouse. From widespread volcanic eruptions to episodes of global glaciation. It's easy to imagine life gaining a foothold on a wide variety of worlds. Comets and asteroids, for example, have been found to deliver a steady rain of interplanetary dust to Earth, including organic compounds and water that could have supplied the building blocks of life. Analyzing a type of carbon-rich meteorite, researchers have found amino acids, molecules used to make proteins. They also found components used to make DNA, along with sugar-related organic compounds that are a basic part of living cells. But primitive life forms don't necessarily evolve to more advanced forms. The rare Earth view points to a complex and fortuitous chain of circumstances on this planet. It began when simple bacteria gave rise to one-celled organisms called eukaryotes. They evolved specialized internal organs to regulate processes such as photosynthesis. These organisms began to regulate surface temperatures by taking in carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas, while releasing oxygen. Volcanism and other geological processes released more CO2 in the air. Ocean and land plants, along with chemical reactions in rocks called weathering, pulled CO2 back out of the air. A global carbon cycle developed that kept surface temperatures within a relatively narrow range. A stable climate allowed the planet to retain its stores of water. Water, in turn, has helped drive the movement of Earth's crustal plates, a process that releases and buries CO2. There were other factors as well. A nearly circular orbit has helped keep seasonal extremes in check. The moon stabilized the day-night cycle. Earth is also at a distance from the sun that allows surface temperatures to hover between the freezing and boiling points of water, the so-called habitable zone. Some scientists also believe we live in a galactic habitable zone. We are close enough to the galactic center to be infused with heavy elements generated by countless stellar explosions over the eons, but far enough away from deadly gamma radiation that can roar out of the center. At the same time, Earth has been able to survive a range of other natural hazards. Some researchers, for example, have linked mass extinctions in the past to the sun's passage through one of the spiral arms, where gamma radiation sources lie in wait. So too, we've made it through asteroid impacts, climate changes, and solar eruptions. Now we wonder, are there kindred spirits somewhere out there to share our survival stories with? Or is Earth alone amid the wastelands of a barren galaxy? This image shows, in stark relief, the biggest obstacle faced by planet hunters. We're looking at Earth, as photographed by the Voyager spacecraft from a distance of 3.7 billion miles. Our mighty world occupies only about 1/10 of 1 pixel. Try seeing something this small at hundreds of thousands of times that distance. And try seeing it through the bright glare of a star. Still, astronomers have made extraordinary progress. In 1995, Swiss astronomers announced the discovery of a planet orbiting the star 51 Pegasi. They found it by carefully charting the star's wobble caused by the gravitational tug of an orbiting planet. What they found is no Earth. It has about half the mass of Jupiter, but orbits at a distance closer than our own Mercury is to the Sun. Most of the planets discovered with this method are gas giants, so-called hot Jupiters that swing in close to their host star. "51 Peg is a G-type dwarf star, like our Sun. It is brighter and more massive than 85% of all other stars in the galaxy. But there are only about 500 others like it within 100 light years of Earth. Scientists have turned their wobble method on a more plentiful breed called M-stars. One of them, 20 light years from Earth, is too dim to see with your naked eye. Gliese 581 in the southern constellation Libra is a red dwarf with 31% of the Sun's mass, but only 1.3% of its luminosity. Using the wobble method, the Swiss team detected an entire solar system with up to 6 rocky planets, ranging from 2 to 18 times the mass of Earth. The most enticing is Planet G, whose presence is still unconfirmed. It's within the life zone. But a star like this gives off so little energy that a planet would have to orbit close just to get enough heat to power its climate. That subjects it to solar flares, common in small stars. So too, a close orbit increases the tendency of the star's gravity to halt any spinning motion. That makes it more difficult for heat and moisture to circulate, and a habitable climate to form. If planet hunters operating on ground-based observatories have told us anything, it's that planets and solar systems are highly diverse. The search for Earth-like planets requires a larger sample. Enter the Kepler Space Telescope, launched in the year 2009. For nearly 4 years, astronomers aimed its precision instruments at a tiny patch of sky with 150,000 stars at a distance of up to 3,000 light years away from Earth. Kepler used what's called the transit method to record subtle dips in the star's light caused by a planet passing in front of it. By analyzing the light as it dipped, scientists are able to estimate the planet's mass, radius, and the distance from its parent star. Combining Kepler and ground-based observations, there are now 3,841 planetary candidates. 1,075 have been confirmed by further telescope or computer analysis. The vast majority of candidates orbit in the hot zone of their parent star, and most have a mass equivalent to Neptune or Jupiter. There is a smaller cadre of planets out in the warm or habitable zone. These two are mostly large gas planets. About a dozen, though, have masses that are smaller than Neptune, but larger than Earth. At the higher end of this range, they are known as mini-Neptunes, or gas dwarfs. At the lower end are rocky worlds called super-Earths. How Earth-like are they? Most super-Earths are thought to have dense, inhospitable atmospheres. That's because their intense gravity is able to hold on to stores of gas drawn to it in the early days of solar system formation. If a slightly smaller planet can avoid this fate, it may succumb to another. Consider the star Kepler-62, a relatively Sun-like star with 69% the mass of our Sun. 2 of its 5 known planets are most likely solid like Earth, but with large amounts of surface water. 62F on the outer rim of the habitable zone could well be frozen over. 62E, farther in, is likely inundated. The thinking is that the density and internal heat of a planet this size prevents surface water from migrating down into the mantle. With land areas kept to a minimum, a super-Earth would not develop the carbon cycle necessary for regulating a climate. It may be too early to write these worlds off. A recent study showed that the weight of their oceans may be enough to push large amounts of water down into the mantle, where it could help fuel volcanism and plate tectonics. These geological processes would create land masses, allowing a carbon cycle and a climate to take hold. So far, we have not seen what we're looking for: Earth 2.0. A malfunctioning gyroscope on the Kepler satellite ended its observations after 4 productive years in space. The data it captured remains a mother lode that scientists continue to mine. Based on a statistical analysis of all the Kepler observations, a new study says 1 in 5 Sun-like stars do have planets about the size of Earth, with surface temperatures conducive to life. Given that about 20% of stars in the galaxy are Sun-like, that would amount to several tens of billions of potentially habitable Earth-sized planets. And there may well be a whole other population of habitable worlds we haven't considered. 620 light-years away, in the constellation of Cygnus the Swan, is a star that's slightly cooler and smaller than our Sun. Kepler-22 has a planet squarely in the habitable zone, but at around 6 times the mass of Earth, it's probably enshrouded by a dense atmosphere. It's large enough that it could have pulled another planet into orbit, one that's large enough to maintain an atmosphere and liquid water on its surface. If any of the confirmed exoplanets do have a moon, it would leave a subtle but distinct imprint on the star's light. Kepler came online in a new age of massive data gathering and supercomputer analysis. That will define future planet-finding missions as well. The Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, TESS, for example, is scheduled for launch in 2017. It will focus on about 500,000 bright sun-like G and K stars, looking for telltale dips in their light as orbiting planets pass. The James Webb Space Telescope, in active development since 1996, is currently slated for launch in 2018. Astronomers hope to use it to peer into planetary atmospheres, to detect carbon dioxide, oxygen, methane, and other indicators of climates or even life. Optimism that we'll find other worlds like ours is driving these increasingly sophisticated efforts. It's tempered by what we've learned of our own world and solar system, that there are so many factors that can derail a planet's evolution. In the future, if our itch to explore becomes unbearable, or if somehow things don't work out on this planet, there is bound to be some available galactic real estate out there. We'll have to develop advanced transport to get there, 20, 100, 1,000 light years away. We may find that we are not exactly adapted to its gravity. Its mix of land and water, its atmosphere. We may not prefer its climate. The question is, will it be worth the trip?
Third phase of moon.
Welcome back to Third Phase of Moon. My name is Blake Cousins, and we have a special guest back due to popular demand. Michael Horn, the representative of Billy Meier. Incredible case. Michael, welcome to Third Phase of Moon.
Glad to be here.
Wow, Michael's joining us via Skype live from Arizona, and we're talking to him at home base, Third Phase Moon, right here in Hawaii. This is going to be an incredible interview, and we want to get started with what's going on. New revelations, new insight to photographs, videos, and even people covering up the information. Let's get straight to the cover-up. What's going on with you trying to get the information out on Billy, and now all of a sudden people are trying to close it down, not getting the word out? Tell us what's going on, Michael.
It's actually very interesting. I put out a new film just a little less than a month ago called And Did They Listen? And I submitted the film to one of the administrators at Arizona State University because I thought it might be a nice place to screen the film for a few reasons. One, of course, for students and professors alike to see it and to question and challenge. And two, there's a professor named Paul Davies at that university who's written 5 books on extraterrestrial life, but who's run away totally from even looking at the Meier material. It probably would ruin his career a little bit. Okay, so I submit the film. Nice lady says, okay, I'll watch your film. And then she writes me back and she says, your film will not be shown or sponsored by anyone at ASU. What she said is, we're banning this film. We're censoring this film. Now, folks, you know that all sorts of things go down on colleges. That same college has some kind of a crazy class about using condoms. I mean, quite literally, I've got this on a blog. It's hysterical stuff. But she was so intimidated by seeing this film. She watched it over a weekend's time. She could not criticize one thing, but it so obviously busted up her belief system that she has taken the step to ban the film.
Well, let's, Michael, let's share with everybody right now this this new documentary that you're going to be releasing, or it's released right now, but everybody at Third Phase of Moon, let's take a look at it right now and we'll be right back.
It was a time when the people had created great turmoil, environmental catastrophes, and wars on their once beautiful planet. They thought of themselves as the only intelligent beings and the crowning glory of creation.
There are more advanced human beings than we are, and they're actually in contact with one man on Earth. Clearly, I mean, we would have to say this is the most important thing that's ever happened. The core of this case, again, is a spiritual teaching, not a belief system and not a religion. A teaching about human consciousness and all these things.
Die Menschen müssen lernen, sich selbst zu sein und müssen die Selbstverantwortung zu tragen lernen.
Fukushima, Meyer was told within mere days, this is already a super worst possible case scenario, which will only get worse. You are being lied to, and the contamination of your seas and your air, your food chain, is going to be exponential.
Okay, we're back. Now, Michael, why do you think they're banning this film? What's so relevant that they don't want to get the information out to the public?
Here's the deal. This film, you know, this is like my third film in 6 years or whatever on the Meyer case. It is inescapably real. When you watch the film, we lay out so many things over 111 minutes that anybody can check out. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about the amazing wedding cake UFO that's been analyzed. The prophecy, scientific information, it's so solid that anybody, that has a strong religious belief system, is probably going to go a little wacky. Anybody that has only been looking at UFOs for the phenomenon part, you know, let's be honest, the stuff that we can see on film, but we don't know if they're there, why are they there? This film lays out the reason, what it's about for us as humanity, what we need to learn because of what is already coming down the pipe, and that which is already obviously upon us, and what's coming. People don't want to know. They want to, you know, preoccupy themselves with trendy and I think oftentimes irrelevant things. College students are inheriting this world. High school students are inheriting it. And this woman, who's a very, very nice person, I spoke to her, but it obviously blew her out because you can't criticize. You can't, it's not about little aliens with big heads and big eyes. It's about real human beings who are highly advanced, who for 70 years have been meeting with Meyer, met with him as recently as 2 weeks ago. I happen to know that. And they continue to give him information and to keep a hands-off policy on this. It's up to us now. If this college wants to ban it, it's like trying to pull the covers over your head. It doesn't make it go away.
Well, Michael, when we first spoke to you almost about 6-7 months ago, we were happy enough and honored to share the Billy Meyer story, and the response was huge. I remember as a young child myself watching Billy Meyer and seeing these fantastic stories, and more the evidence comes in. You know, people from around the world will say it's a controversial, very controversial story. The evidence is there. People judge it with what they will. But the audience members here at Third Phase Moon just reacted to it so much in a big-time way. That's why we're back here talking about this again. And I want to get to some of the questions that people have come to us and wanted to ask you. And first of all, what this is about regarding this photograph, the wedding cake at night, this golden wedding cake shot. Now it's been enhanced, and people want to know what's up. What are we seeing after this enhancement decades later?
Well, this is interesting for two reasons. I'll back it up before the enhancement and say to you, there's an arrow on this one photograph, and it's pointing to a band that we can see here. I found out about 3, 4, 5 years ago, I noticed that the dimensions on this craft changed from the daytime craft. You can see photographs of, you know, the broad daylight one parked in front of Meyer's house, and this nighttime one, the top of it, we could call it a cupola, extends out of the craft. And this is something that then Professor Zahi also noticed and analyzed. But the real meat of the matter when we look at this wedding cake thing here, and I am a zero with technology. I put it in Photoshop. I did exactly what he said. Turn up the contrast, turn up the brightness, and 32, 33 years later, we see that this is not a marble against a black curtain. This is a really large object hovering over a road at night with a post, could be a fence post or a marking post that they have for, you know, so many meters or whatever in Switzerland. Meyer is sitting on another craft above this craft when he takes this photograph. He told people, and the beauty of this is Meyer, he's known for 32, 33 years. Hey, I took that night, we were hovering over a road. He's never said a word. We have to find the stuff for ourselves. And this makes all the skeptics look like monkey brains. Oh, it's a garbage can lid, they said, with Christmas tree ornaments and all this nonsense. Obviously, this is no garbage can lid. And in his third analysis of it, which is, you might be able to show that or link to it, he shows the most discrete details on this thing. There are crystals that are red, that are green, that are blue, that are white. The skeptics said, oh, there's something that fell off. And they were saying a piece of it fell off and was sitting in the daytime. It's not, it's a ring that's actually part of the construction. When you zoom in on the globes, these have lenses in them, like blue lenses. This is mind-boggling. I don't care about any, you can look at a lot of great footage. I understand, it's fascinating. This thing, Meyer is within 20, 30 feet of it.
Well, the pictures, I was looking at them today, and we're sharing them right now. And I suggest everybody take a look at the photo, the nighttime photo, do your own investigation, put some brightness contrast on it, watch when it pops, and you'll see what Billy said all along. It appears that there's a floating major wedding cake kind of flying saucer above a post in kind of like a field. Quite interesting. 30 years later, this was revealed. And now we're looking at, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, the skeptics, who are obviously going to lose their screws over this, and they cannot respond. They refuse to now even engage. Here's the thought. We would have to believe that Billy Meyer, 33 years ago, is somehow smart enough with a 35mm film camera to take a nighttime photo, knowing somehow he's going to be able to trick 21st century state-of-the-art technology, and voila, we're going to see this craft is hovering over a road. It doesn't happen, folks. This is one of 63 photos. And when you look at the video that's freely available on my site and through YouTube, 5 minutes of zooming in and out on a wedding cake ship, broad daylight. This is real. And he meets with these folks. They're human beings. They're not, there's no extraterrestrial presence walking around on Earth, with the exception of when these folks drop down on him once every few weeks, meet with him, talk to him, and he types out the contact, and then they're gone. There's no extraterrestrials working underground. All of this stuff that we've been told is the disinformation, and it's come from the UFO industry and the UFO community. Fine, let's look at everything. Let's see what we can learn from it. But people, the clock is ticking. These people have given us information to help us survive what's coming down the pike.
Well, we just looked, as you're saying that, at some of these detailed photos, close up of the, people claim it's some kind of model or something like that. But, 30 years ago, this was, if it was a model manufactured 30 years ago, the detail that we're looking at here is why go out of their way to do it. It is quite interesting. The detail is spectacular, and the technique on whatever it is, it seems extraterrestrial in origin. Now let's get to these photographs. I love these broad daylight photographs of the saucer, like basically hovering around this tree. And this is one of the most amazing metallic broad daylight photos out there, pretty much the most controversial shots. Tell us about these, and what was Billy Meyer, when he's taking these shots, what was he thinking?
With the wedding cake, are we speaking about?
Yes, the wedding cake next to the tree, broad daylight. Go ahead.
Right, and they are truly amazing photographs. He took them at various ranges of distance. When you do look at the video, you'll see him actually snapping some of the photos in that 5-minute video that's for free on my website. He actually has a little conversation during the video. He's talking to one of the ETs, asking him to move the craft, and the guy says to him no, because they always stop short of proving, so that it's okay, it's a slam dunk. I sent you another link showing UFO going around the tree of film. That's been out there now for 49 years or something crazy, 39 years, whatever it is. And the weird part is the craft is in 2 places in 1 frame of film. There's no models involved. So to get back to the wedding cake ship, this is a craft that the Plejaren basically actually made just for using in the context here on Earth. And they actually had to take it out of operation because the metals started to have corrosion from our atmosphere. But we got 63 photos and a great video out of them. And of course, everybody, thought, oh, this is, as we said, it's got to be some kind of a hoax. Those detailed photographs that you show, those crystals, there's like 100 red crystals around. I mean, here's a one-armed guy. What's he gonna do? Sit around and try to place crystals on a garbage can lid? The guy who did the best model of this couldn't even come close with the details. So extraterrestrial technology made by human beings who are way ahead of us, and they're not wanting us to focus too long on this, but they want to get our attention. So I think, to answer your question, a lot of it is about getting our attention, so we'll pay attention then to the information.
Well, let's take a quick clip, quick view of this documentary that appeared right here in Third Phase of Moon, thanks to Michael Horn. Let's take a look at it right now.
Das Universum, das ist schon
The universe is already very, very old, and everything took its time to come into being, even human life. The beginning is the cause from which the effect came about. It's the law of causality which has to take effect.
Kausalgesetz, das wirken muss. Der Sinn des Lebens ist die Evolution.
The meaning of life is the human being's evolution with regard to his consciousness.
Was ist Gott, Billy?
Gott, das ist eine imaginäre Gestalt, die die Menschen geschaffen haben.
Billy, what is God?
God is an imaginary figure which has been created by human beings so they don't have to bear responsibility themselves. Rather, they can shift it onto a deity, but God, in and of itself, is nothing other than a title for a human being who is very highly evolved.
Gott ist also nicht das, was die Menschen irrtümlich annehmen.
God is therefore not what human beings wrongly assume, that he is the creator of life, the creator of a universe, of space. God is nothing other than a title, be it Allah or Shiva, etc.
Der versucht immer eine Macht über sich zu setzen.
The human being always tries to set a power above himself, and he calls it God. This God or this power is supposed to be responsible for him and everything and anything that he says, does, thinks and feels, and so forth, and for his fate.
Der Mensch ist für alles und jedes, das selbst denkt.
The human being is solely responsible for each and everything he thinks, does, feels, and undertakes. He must be responsible for it.
Muss das Positive und das Negative.
He must bear and savor all the positive and negative which he processes through his thoughts, actions, and feelings.
Special effect artists that worked on the movie Independence Day, you reached out to them to, share Billy Meier's evidence. What became of that, and what did they have to say? Tell us about the whole experience. Go ahead.
Yes, it was a time that I was making the Silent Revolution of Truth, and my friend, one of my friends knew them and brought me to see them. They were, I think, at the time in Culver City. They're called Uncharted Territory. Volker, Engel, and Mark, and last name is escaping me at the moment. It's been probably about 7-8 years, whatever. Anyhow, they commented on this film that Meier took, the first film that Meier took in 1975, where the UFO is going around the tree. Now, many people said, oh, it's obviously a model on string. It got known as the pendulum UFO too for a while. And so people attacked that as an obvious hoax, and the skeptic set up a miniature tree, and he did a thing with a little model and all. Didn't do a bad job, but what just happened in the last couple of months is Professor Zaghi, who did all of the analysis on the wedding cake ship, decided to go over that film footage. And his findings actually validate what the effects guy said years ago. To really do that shot right and to fake it, you would need a crane and wires and all sorts of things pulling, and because it's not just an object that is dangling and spins around. Professor Zaghi showed, and of course it's linked from my blog, that the craft was behaving in very specific and unusual ways that completely eliminated the possibility of any string. The string would have had to have been shortened, lengthened, the focal point would have had to have moved, all sorts of stuff. Most amazingly, it appears that in a couple of times in one frame of the film, you can see the craft in about 2 places in one frame of the film, somehow. And I think anybody that wants to, again, do what Professor Zahi did, he tells you what equipment he used, and you can take the film clip and analyze it. That isn't my specialty. And of course, I'm really kind of tickled, if you will, that the 2 guys that own that company, the Academy Award-winning company, got it right. It's not just a dang little model. You would really need a crane, and you'd have to manipulate because of the way the thing turns and wobbles and backs up. So what we see at first glance, what we appear to see, isn't always what's really happening, what's really there. And that's what's so amazing about Meyer's evidence.
There's a lot of these pictures and photographs and videos. It shows that this metallic disc, loves to hang out around trees. Is there a reason behind that, did Billy say?
What he said, as I recall, he said, they wanted to just have the photos and films near objects that people could have a relationship to size-wise. They could tell, how big this other object of craft would be, because these would be known objects. Now, of course, people tried to jump on and say, oh, those are miniature trees. But years ago, forestry experts were given the photographs, and they said, we don't know what the object is, but those are mature, real 40-foot trees. How do you know that? Well, there's something called nesting that takes place at the tops of some of these trees. There's pruning marks, or branches have been cut off. There's little details that just do not show up on models, because basically a model tree is made to look, quote unquote, good. And these guys said right away, oh no, it's a real tree. It's full size, look at here. So that worked, except the skeptics kept on yammering about it's got to be models. I have a link, and maybe we'll be showing that tonight, where there's a video, and Meyer and a Japanese film director walk up the hill to where the tree is, with the most famous one of them, of the shots, called the sunshine UFO photo. And you'll see the photo, and then you'll see them walk up to that tree. It's a different season, but it's clearly the same tree. It's a huge tree. And so there's no way that some little model could have been put up there, This just takes common sense, patience, looking, thinking, and then you get someone like Professor Zahi, who starts ripping through these things with real state-of-the-art technology, and he's got those videos he made on the analysis of the wedding cake craft. This is just putting it in a whole other realm, and all the years that it's taken for this to come forward, this is telling us that we're not as swift as we think we are. We don't always know. That's why I titled my article, Can You See What You're Looking At?
Well, it's quite interesting. People become experts in things that they don't understand overnight, and that's a situation we have to deal with at Third Phase Moon all the time. There's these metallic disc videos that we receive on a monthly basis of really good, great UFO video, and sometimes they have this pendulum effect, or like a wobbly action going on. But in Bob Lazar, he apparently worked at Area 51, and a lot of scientists that we've spoken to in quantum physics and all this, that they say when there's anti-gravity in that kind of state, and it's in a hovering state, that's a kind of a natural reaction. It's when they get to great speeds is when they start to stabilize. That's what they're all about. The design is about high-speed travel. And then,
right.
Go ahead.
Well, a lot of what is being seen and filmed and photographed is not extraterrestrial. There are a number of terrestrial groups that have advanced craft. They're not interplanetary, but some of it is anti-gravity, and some of the stuff has existed for decades. This is where people that are only going to focus on the phenomenon are not going to get their bang for the buck. You can only go so far with stuff that flies around. The Meyer case gives us the reason for contacts. And I wouldn't care if there were 30 or 300 other genuine, authentic contactees. There simply aren't. They can't prove it. Lots of good footage nowadays because there's lots of testing of military craft, and there is an extraterrestrial race whose craft are sometimes seen around the world and photographed, and who are not the play on. They are a race that's only observing us at this time. They're not contacting.
All right, Michael, you know, everybody wants to know when, if ever, are we ever going to get to speak with, you know, Billy Myers?
Well, you know, Billy just turned 77. I'm a little younger than he is, but he speaks mainly German, very little English now. Even when I go over there, I have to bone up with my almost non-existent German to talk to him. He gives me a break when I've run out of words. You know, he'll speak to me a little in English, but he does no more interviews. He's let us come over to film him. We have another shorter film that'll be coming out in a couple of months where he answers questions about the spiritual teaching. It's very interesting. And we, of course, have a couple clips in this film and another film I have out. But his attitude is, look, I've written 26,000 plus pages of information. If we could sit down and have a conversation together, we won't learn as much in an hour with him as we can if we just sit there and voraciously go through the material. Think about it, question it. That's the way it is with good information. It's why you can go to a college and you get a lecture or something, but you've got those books. You see what I'm saying? So, sure, it's great to talk to Billy, but he's just, really, being with him is just like being with another guy. The difference is that maybe 15 minutes or 20 minutes before I sat down to talk to him, he's had a meeting with some of the extraterrestrial human beings, and they were doing work, and to them it's not a big deal, but they're not going to interact with us. So, what can I tell you?
Is there any new message for anybody around the world listening right here at Third Phase Moon? What's the new message from Billy Meyer coming out?
Well, the new message, there's some new information, but here's the plain, real truth. Within a week after Fukushima, and we go into this in the new film, and did they listen? Meyer was told that this was already an ultra, super, worst possible case scenario. The contamination already flowing out within the first several days had already reached Europe, the radioactivity. That's more than 2.5 years ago. Fukushima is going to affect all of us for generations to come. We have to understand this is not going away simply because it isn't in today's news report, although it will, you know, it is somewhere. The BP disaster has contaminated the seas, and all of this stuff from both Fukushima and BP will down as rain. It's already destroying the food chain. Parts of the oceans are dead. This is, you know, and I don't mean to go into doom and gloom. Meyer warned about this in '51, about this atomic power stuff, power plants, dangerous, bad, don't do it. He's been warning about environmental destruction since '51 or earlier. What he has said and been told recently is that by 2020, there's a very good chance that in the US, we will have anarchy here. Now, this is way out there kind of stuff. But let's remember that as early as 1981 and 87, he foretold 2 civil wars coming to America. We can see now the polarization, culturally, politically, racially, religiously, increases. People are under all sorts of increased stress. The financial situations are breaking down, and they will continue to break down. We've been warned about this stuff. So, do we just conclude this and say, well, it's doom and gloom and there's nothing we can do about it? No. He is still of a mind that there are things that each individual human being can do that can start to make course corrections to some degree. We're in these messes because human beings went in the wrong direction for too long. There's nobody coming to save us. There's no ascended masters, there's no angels, there's no gods, there's no group. It's not outside of us. This contact is about helping us to help ourselves assure our own future survival. We don't have to contract in fear and desperation. If anything, we should be accessing our own internal joy. We should be concentrating and meditating and looking to connect with other human beings who simply want to do those things to correct their thinking and their feelings and their actions towards peace, love, freedom, and harmony. It sounds simplistic, but who doesn't want those things? And look how far we are from it. Lots of stuff is coming. We just have to be, you know, that term spiritual warriors is probably an appropriate one. We buck up. We say, okay, we're in these times. They are interesting. They're challenging. Love, peace, freedom, harmony. If I maintain my focus on those things as much as I can, I vibrate that way. I start to correct myself. It radiates out. We link up with each other. And then we realize it's never been about UFOs. It's never been about extraterrestrials. They've been through this. They had a world that was basically destroyed by atomic energy plants when they had things like meteorite strikes or earthquakes that ruptured those plants. They want us to go right to deep geothermal energy. You know, the Big Island has got plenty of that. And so does every place on Earth. You sink a shaft and you let that heat energy come up into a facility with turbines, and far more effective than solar, far more effective than wind. You can use those other things, but we don't need nuclear power plants to continue to poison. So there is so much here.
Michael, I really want to thank you for joining us right here at Third Phase of Moon, and we're going to have you back, and hopefully we could have the public and the Third Phase of Moon viewers ask you the questions, and we'd hope to set this up and let
This series presents information based in part on theory and conjecture. The producer's purpose is to suggest some possible explanations, but not necessarily the only ones, to the mysteries we will examine.
They've been reported at dusk or in the dead of night, in clearings, amid still woods and fields in lonely farm country. Sometimes they come in silence, sometimes with quiet thunder. Often they leave marks in the earth, signals of their passing. They've been seen but fleetingly, and their extraordinary presence creates a frightening mystery. In fields from West Virginia through Wisconsin to Oregon are the beginnings of answers. On June 24th, 1947, an Idaho businessman named Kenneth Arnold was flying his private plane near Washington's Mount Rainier. He saw 9 disc-like objects moving rapidly along the horizon. Arnold said they moved erratically, like saucers skipped across a pond. Flying saucer thus became part of our language. After the Mount Rainier sighting, unidentified flying objects were reported all over the country, an astonishing number of them. And the sightings have continued to this day. A chill morning in Mellon, Wisconsin. Quiet fields and quiet people. Yet something remarkable happened on the Mellontown Road. Something that would have seemed incredible if it hadn't happened to people as down to earth as the town of Mellon itself.
How much did you make on it last year? I made about 20-some bucks. I made about $5.60.
Philip Baker works in a mill on the same job for more than 20 years. He's grown up here and passed on to his children a love for the land, a love for planting and harvesting his own crops, for cutting wood to warm the house in the long Wisconsin winters. He was an officer in his union once, but stepped down because it meant too much time away from his wife Shirley and their kids, Monty, Jeff, Jane, and John.
Lazy, good for nothing.
The most important things to the Baker family are hard work and being together. They were together the most incredible night of their lives. It was March 13, 1975.
I was carrying the two cats. I was walking to the garage. And I got by this corner, right by the house here. And I looked, and there was this weird object, funny noises, and it was really bright, and I didn't know what I should do. So I was going back and forth, and finally I threw the cat in the garage. And then I ran to the house around the corner, and I couldn't get the door open.
When I first saw it, I was standing approximately right here, but I couldn't get too good of a view of it because the brush and the trees are in the way. So then I went back into the house, and I got my coat on. My two youngest boys and Jane were following me. We went over here to get a better look at the object that was sitting on the road, and my curiosity still wanted me to get a better view of it. So we walked down. Of course, the ground was covered with snow, and my car was sitting here in the driveway, and of course there were snowbanks on the side of the roads, and there's where I got my estimate of the size of the object, approximately 12 feet in diameter, but also with the markings in the snow, and I would judge the object at the center of it was approximately 6 feet high. It was like a turtle. My two boys and my girl started to proceed here closer. My girl told me not to go any closer to it. She ran back in the house.
He was going to go walking up to it, and I went back to the house and told my mom that he was going to go up there and get closer to it. And she came out and she yelled at him.
My wife came out and hollered at me and told me not to be foolish and go any closer to it, not knowing exactly what the object was on the road. And of course I did get a very good view of it from here, as there was nothing blocking my vision on the road. Montgomery was looking out the upstairs windows where he got his view of the object.
And we went in the house and we called the deputy sheriff. And when the deputy said hello, there was a boom and it was gone. I went out and I couldn't see it anymore.
The sheriff came and he saw nothing. That can be a pretty lonely feeling, to have witnessed something incredible and be unable to produce evidence. Loneliest of all, perhaps, for the Baker children. They would want to tell their story to friends at school, but who would believe them?
Well, Monty, my oldest boy, he was all upset. He told my other two boys, now don't say anything. Don't say anything to kids at school. We don't want nothing of this to get out. And of course, Janie was in tears. She says, well, I know what I saw. She says, you trying to tell me I'm crazy or something? She said, I know what we saw. She says, don't try to tell me I didn't see anything, because she said, I know I saw it. And she was in tears and everything else that night. And of course, the undersheriff, I apologized when he left me off here, because I thought, well, no, we didn't find anything. He said, he'll think I'm a little off too. And he said, no, don't forget, just forget about it. I said, well, I said, okay, let's forget about it. No, I said, but don't tell anybody then. Matter of fact, I even mentioned him. I said, don't tell anybody. I said, just forget it then, because I said, let's drop the whole story.
Mellon has a newspaper, the Weekly Record. Editor Jasper Landry knows just about everybody in Mellon by first name.
I've known Mr. Baker for about 30 years, and he and his family have been here a long time. And when this story broke on the UFOs, he asked me not to put it in the paper because of the anxiety his family was being put through by callers and curiosity seekers. And so I thought that I wouldn't. And he was very appreciative. I honored his wish to not have it printed.
The story got around anyway, of this country lane where the Baker family saw something big and metallic with red and green lights. Something that was gone almost as soon as it came.
I am George Ree.
Mellon, Wisconsin. I am the Undersheriff of Ashland County. On this night in question, I answered a complaint of Philip Baker, and I arrived at the site and I investigated it, and I firmly believe that the Baker family did see an object.
Sheriff Ree had good reason to believe Baker's story. He may have arrived at the Baker house too late to see anything there. But when he left, a second call came to investigate reported lights in the sky. Ree and 7 deputies from 2 counties raced across country roads. Sheriff Ree would sight a bright object darting in the sky, call on his radio for another car to intercept it, and the object would dart away, sometimes to briefly join another hovering in the sky. One of Ree's deputies said the light given off by the objects was so intense he could read a newspaper by it. And when it passed over another patrol car, the police radio went dead. To this moment, no one knows what it was that George Ree and 7 county policemen chased that night in Wisconsin. Big Chimney, West Virginia. It has been suggested that the overwhelming percentage of UFO sightings occur in small towns and rural farmlands for good reasons. The view is less obstructed, for one thing. The residents are more likely to be looking up at the sky, more sensitive to the changing lights above.
It's about 9:30 in the night. We were driving north on 119 towards Clendon, and my wife saw some intensely bright lights in the sky, and she commented that this was the brightest airplane lights that she'd ever seen. I looked up, and there's this big diamond-shaped object with big flat ends set right above the treetops.
Carol Critchfield pursued his UFO to the spot where he saw it set down and found marks that could have been made by landing gear. Critchfield is a foreman in a Big Chimney chemical plant. He's not the sort of man who is often called on to take lie detector tests. But he knows how incredible his story must sound.
I'm Ian Criswell from the Criswell Security Agency in Wheeling, West Virginia. Myself and a team of investigative specialists conducted extensive polygraph testing of Mr. Critchfield.
The lie detector, or polygraph, is a sensitive device for recording changes in body temperature, rate of breathing, electrical impulses in the skin, and heartbeat. Preliminary tests established normal parameters, which, if exceeded during the actual test, indicate deception.
This is the blood pressure pattern, this is a skin sensitivity pattern, and this is a breathing pattern.
A lie detector test cannot prove whether or not Critchfield saw a UFO. It can only indicate whether he believes he is telling the truth.
Is your last name Critchfield?
Yes.
Do you intend to answer all of my questions truthfully?
Yes.
Are you being completely truthful to the best of your belief concerning the object which you described and saw in the written statement describing the events of June 12, 1975?
Yes.
Are you being truthful when you say that in the first 35 years of your life you have never lied to a police officer?
Yes.
Are you being completely truthful when you say that you have no knowledge of how the burn spots and other evidence were created other than by the object described in your written statement?
Yes.
The test is now over. On the first question here concerning Mr. Critchfield's name, there was no reaction in any of the tracings. And the second question concerning the, does he plan to answer all questions truthfully? Again, there were no reactions indicating deception. And question number 3 concerning the object that Mr. Critchfield described in a written statement previous to this examination. There were no reactions significant of deception. On the question concerning the burn spots and the other evidence left by the object, there were no reactions indicative of deception. And it is our opinion that Mr. Critchfield has told the complete truth about all statements concerning the object he cited on June 12, 1975.
It would be unusual indeed if a man not noted for vivid imagination and guile could invent a story about a UFO and then control half a dozen involuntary body functions in such a way as to fool a sophisticated machine and experienced technicians. Much easier to believe that something extraordinary happened on a hilltop in Big Chimney, West Virginia. Something that touched Carroll Critchfield's life and left him wondering.
The pocket transit also can be used to get...
Some men, like Ted Phillips, are dedicated to finding answers for the growing number of perplexed people who have had UFO experiences. Phillips is an amateur scientist and UFO investigator.
Neat little pocket penetrometer.
Phillips has taken soil samples at dozens of reported UFO landing sites. He and his fellow investigators have amassed reports of no less than 60,000 UFO sightings in the past 30 years. Many of these were fairly easy to explain. Conventional aircraft, weather balloons, flocks of geese. But more than 900 cases remain unexplained. Phillips has an important ally in his search, the University of Kansas Aerospace Science Laboratory. It is the place he sends soil samples for analysis. Dr. Edward Zeller is the man in charge. Zeller believes it would be unscientific to ignore UFO reports, and that the techniques of hard scientific analysis can be put to work finding answers. Medford, Minnesota. Medford provided Dr. Zeller with a test sample, and a remarkable story told by Janet Kay provides the background.
On the night of November 2nd, 1975, I was sitting here doing my homework, and I looked out the window, and right above the blue building, I saw a UFO come down out of the sky. And it landed behind the building, and behind the building is a football field. It landed there.
There were two other witnesses, Janet's mother, Helen, and her brother, Jerry.
A lot of people in town saw it. I don't know how many people saw it and told us the next day that they saw this thing up in the sky.
In the sky.
As we pulled around the driveway here, I noticed up by the blue shed over there that there was something in the sky. So I pulled out of the driveway, and I said, turn down here, we can maybe get closer to it. So we just went over this way. And then you could just see it real good before the trees. It was definitely right there. And we just drove up here, and by that stop sign there, the railroad tracks, there's a fence across, so we couldn't go any further. And we just noticed it. It was just coming right in front of the trees, and we just stood here a minute till we saw it just glide over the top of the trees, and then it was gone.
Well, a couple days later, after we saw the UFO go down, I saw a lot of people over here looking at something, so I came over here and I found this big brown spot on the football field where the grass had been burnt. As you can see, the blue building is right over there, and the burn spot is right here. And it's right in line with the window we saw the UFO come down from.
Now, this happens to be the sample from the Medford site, number 2, which does show some strange luminescence properties. And so I'd want to make sure that the sample that I'm dealing with is not in itself radioactive. And I don't find that it is. I don't see any evidence of increased radioactivity.
Yeah, at the time, it wasn't scary. It didn't frighten me when I looked out the window and I saw it. I didn't get scared or anything, but afterwards, when I realized that what I had seen was unexplainable, that's when it started to get scary. And then when they found the patch on the football field, well, that got a little worse.
Furnace ready to be inserted here into the light chamber. And now we've inserted the sample, which is on the electric furnace, into the chamber, and we're going to start heating it.
It's been 6 months since we saw the UFO go down, and as you can see, the burnt spot is still visible. I just wish I knew what it was. Don't you think so?
Yeah, I mean, if it was something, you know, from another country or something the Army was putting up in the air, I wish they'd come and tell us that, that this was it, and not just leave us out here thinking that it was something from some outer space place.
I'd be satisfied with any kind of an explanation.
Well, we're going to start off here by looking then at the glow curves, which I ran about 2 months ago on the Medford site. And if we look at the curve at the center of the site, we see that there's just a very small rise here. That is, the luminescence peak is very small. At the edge of the site, as we proceed along here, at the edge of the site, we discover the intense luminescence. Now, this luminescence that we are observing is apparently the result of some sort of radiation effect. It looks, at least, as though that particular sample at the edge of the site has been subjected to some kind of high-energy radiation.
If I had never seen a UFO, I wouldn't believe in it. I wouldn't believe me if I were you. Because I have nothing to show you. I can't say, you know, I saw this. I just have nothing. All you have is my word.
But there is more than just Mrs. K's word. In a recent Gallup poll, 15 million Americans claim to have seen a UFO. 15 million. The same poll showed that 51% of the adult population is convinced that flying saucers are real. For those who haven't seen one, this is a recreation of what Carol Critchfield saw on a hilltop in Big Chimney, West Virginia. The artist used the same technique that a police artist would use in recreating the features of a suspect from the descriptions of witnesses. And this is what Philip Baker saw on the town road in Mellon, Wisconsin. Helen Kay and her children saw this object land on a football field in Medford, Minnesota. The last systematic attempt by the U.S. government to investigate UFOs was conducted by the Air Force and was called Project Blue Book. Project Blue Book ended in 1968. The Air Force had by then investigated more than 11,000 UFO sightings and found explanations for all but 676. The Air Force seemed to have no interest in the sightings it could not readily attribute to earthly phenomena. Perhaps it's time to approach the question of UFOs again, without bias. For we can only hope that if we are being studied by aliens, it is with more thorough